The final passage type for the ACT Science is called conflicting viewpoints. There are always one of these on each ACT exam. It is the least common of all of the science question types. And what it's made up of, and is easy to identify, is you will find yourself with two short essays to write, or to read, I apologize. This looks a whole lot like an English section. And these two short essays have conflicting viewpoints, which is exactly why it's called the conflicting viewpoints section. There are conflicting views, or they have different theories about why something is the way that it is. So we're looking at conflicting views and theories, and this is basically the science equivalent of an argumentative essay. You are going to be taking a look at two people's opinions on things, and you're going to be figuring out what is the difference between the two of them. So, let's take a look at an example. In an essay about nuclear power, it is going to set you up with two conflicting essays written by blandly named Scientist 1 and Scientist 2. They will typically refer to them as Scientist 1 and 2. They will not usually give you names. Now, the very first thing that you should do when you are confronted with a conflicting viewpoints passage is that you want to figure out what is the difference between the two opinions. So, let's say that I read through Scientist 1 and I read through Scientist 2, not very detailed, we're skimming very quickly just to figure out kind of the general understanding of what they are doing. And I see that this guy is just basically pro-nuclear, and this guy is basically anti-nuclear. And once I've established that, I have a basic understanding of what they are saying. One of the time traps for this question is that you might feel the need to read the entire essays in depth to understand their arguments. You don't have to do that. Just figure out very quickly what you have to do or what their basic opinions are. Now, there are two question types that you will find for the conflicting viewpoints essay. The first one is simply called understanding viewpoints. This is a simple check for understanding on one specific author. So it might ask you specifically about Scientist 1. What information is he using to support his viewpoint? What is his personal opinion on nuclear power? It is not going to have you take a look at both authors. The understanding version is just asking you for one specific author's opinion. It's a check to make sure that you are ready. The second one is going to be comparing. Now, a comparing question, you are going to be looking for similarities and differences. And when we're dealing with similarities and differences, it's really helpful to go back to that initial thing that we did, and do we understand the basic arguments that both people are making? So if I understand that Scientist 1 is pro-nuclear and Scientist 2 is anti-nuclear or doesn't want there to be nuclear power, I already have a basic understanding of how they are similar and different. Now we just have to go into the details. Now, one thing that is important to mention for this passage type is that it is extremely time-consuming compared to the other passages that you will see. So if there's one piece of advice that is generally good for all students to take on this passage, is that you should most definitely save this passage for last. And I can't emphasize this enough. It is by far the most time-consuming of the science sections, and there is only one of them. So if you can easily identify which one is the conflicting viewpoints, I recommend that you skip it and you come back to it later. That is the best way to handle this. Otherwise, just handle it like an argumentative essay. You're comparing two people's opinions on something, and you should do fine.